Hemophilia is just part of your life. If you want to make it the end of the world, I guess you can. But if you want to make your life as full as mine is, you just have to live with it.
I think when you're a kid, because hemophilia is so rare, only 1 in 1,000 people have it, you often feel like you're alone. And maybe you meet a few other kids when you're at the pediatric clinic, but you never really get to see an adult who has hemophilia, so you don't know what to expect when you grow up. And to watch that video and see this guy kind of like the Lone Ranger riding up on that horse and turning to the camera very coolly and saying, "If I get cut, I put a Band-Aid on."
In my second year at university, he was giving a talk on AIDS at a church, and he was telling his story. He was a hemophiliac and had been diagnosed when he was 1. And then when he was 18, the doctor called and talked to his mother and said, "Remember that test we did way back in May? Yeah, it's positive. So John has HIV." And I'm sitting there listening to this, waiting for him to say, "It's a mistake."
There was only a handful of people with hemophilia who were willing and able to be out in the public eye, and there was John Plater and James Krepner and Mike McCarthy.
We were really political neophytes, and so there wasn't an understanding that something could not be done. There was no quit, because you couldn't quit, because it was about protecting kids in the future that needed blood products, people that relied on a safe blood system, and the injustice of people that are living with these viruses that were being shunned from our healthcare system because somehow they weren't deserving of compassion and good treatment. These things drove John and James and myself.
Probably about 10 years ago, we were talking to the doctors about the hepatitis C, and I remember sitting in the office and them saying, "Oh, I think with hep C, you probably have another 10 years before something starts to go wrong with your liver. And at some point, you're going to need a liver transplant. But because you're living with HIV, you're not going to be eligible." John always hoped that he'd never need a liver transplant, but was very aware that that's probably what he was going to need. And unfortunately, he got sick so fast that he wasn't able to get that new liver, which would have extended his life.
I think one of the lessons that we can learn from John is that even though he had this injustice happen to him, he worked hard to make sure that injustice wouldn't happen to others.
I think that it's important that the energy that John put forward continues, that it's not impossible to make changes for the better for people. He was a tremendous role model for a lot of people, and I'm very privileged to have known him.